وسهلا بكل الذين ينضموا للاستماع إلى راديو بلدي، أول راديو عربي أمريكي ويعنى بقضايا العرب في المهجر. برامجنا في راديو بلدي كل يوم جمعة من 8 وحتى 9 صباحا مع ليلى الحسيني في بث حي ومباشر عبر WNZK Radio 690 AM. صباح الخير بلدي، صباح الخير لكل مستمعينا.
Welcome to Radio Baladi, the first Arab, Middle Eastern, and American simulcast radio show. Radio Baladi is broadcast every Friday morning on WNZK 690 AM from 8 until 9 Eastern Time on Good Morning Michigan with Layla Al-Husseini. Our call-in number 248-557-3300. And now, stay tuned for the best radio talk show on Arab and American issues with your host, Layla Al-Husseini.
This is Dr. Sahar Khamis. Join me on the third Friday of each month at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll be discussing some of the most important current political, economic, and social issues in my program, The Bridge. On Radio Baladi, on America's Voice of the Arabs, WNZK 690 AM and WTNV 700 AM. Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Radio Baladi, another great program on Radio Baladi on US Arab Radio. This is your host, Dr. Sahar Khamis. We'll be talking today about a very important and timely topic: cybersecurity in the Middle East in the coronavirus era, threats, challenges, and potentials. And with me this morning discussing this important topic are two experts on this particular area of study and this particular area of research, Mike Sexton and Mohammed Soliman, both from the Middle East Institute. I will introduce them briefly. Mike Sexton is fellow and director of the cyber program at Middle East Institute. His work focuses on the intersections of cyber technology, international security, and governance in the Middle East. He previously served as senior fellow and associate director of the Qatar-America Institute. He is the managing editor of the journal Charged Affairs, and he holds a master's degree in security studies from Georgetown University. My second guest, Mohammed Soliman, is a non-resident scholar with the Middle East Institute. His work focuses on the intersections of technology, geopolitics, and business in the MENA region, the Middle East and North Africa. He holds a master's of science degree in foreign service from Georgetown University. Welcome to the show, Mike and Mohammed.
Glad to be here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us with US Arab Radio for the first time. We really appreciate it. I want to start.
Having us.
Thank you so much. I want to start by saying that definitely before we talk about this particular topic, which is very timely, right? Really coronavirus affected many aspects of our lives, whether it's, health, education, and definitely cybersecurity as well. I want to start just with you, Mike, please, giving some kind of introduction to our listeners who are not familiar with the Middle East Institute. Just give us an idea about Middle East Institute briefly, and also about the cyber program within Middle East Institute in particular, please.
Gladly. So the Middle East Institute is the oldest think tank in the United States that is dedicated solely to understanding the Middle East. We are part think tank, part cultural center, and part education center. A fun fact that a lot of people don't realize is that the different colors on our logo represent the different centers. So they express that we are more than just a think tank, which is what we're most known for. We also have an art center, and we teach several foreign languages that are local to the Middle East. The cyber program specifically, we cover cyber and technology issues in the region, including cyber warfare, digital propaganda, and privacy and censorship issues, which is what we'll be focusing on today.
Excellent. Thank you so much. This is very helpful. And Mohammed, you are a non-resident scholar with the cyber program at Middle East Institute. Can you briefly tell our listeners how this affiliation started, what is your role within the program, and also some of the work or the current projects you're working on?
Thank you, Sahar. As a non-resident scholar, so basically you work on 4 tracks. Number 1, you write analysis on the emerging threats in tech, cybersecurity in the region. Second, you be on a panel or you are moderating a panel yourself, discussing all these trends. Third, we have the cyber study group. So we have a lineup of experts who are discussing cyber policy and trying to come up with policy recommendations for government executives. And finally, and fourth, we are the Middle East Cyber Program is publishing, hopefully, a book called Cyber Peace and Cyber War in the Middle East. So these are the four tracks for the work that we're doing. I joined the program very early on when the program started. The program is very dynamic, very flexible, giving me all the right to work about stuff that I really care about.
Excellent. This is very helpful. Thank you both so much. Now let's jump into our topic for today, right? When we really have a crisis, a global crisis with the magnitude and importance of a global pandemic like coronavirus, it inevitably has both positive and negative consequences on different aspects of life, whether we're talking about education, journalism, health, science, you name it, and definitely cybersecurity. How could this be true for the field of cybersecurity? Can we talk about both the pros and cons in this particular case? I'll start with you, Mike.
So this came up actually during a panel that Mohammed hosted during our annual conference just last week with several business leaders and scholars from the Middle East, that with everyone transitioning to remote work, you're reducing a lot of the business costs because these, startups that may have just been renting space as opposed to owning their own offices now don't need to pay any rent. They can hire people completely online. They can act much more nimbly. It can create a much more entrepreneurial atmosphere. I can say personally, just for the work that I'm doing, I really appreciate being able to sleep later and, let's go for a walk in the middle of the day instead of having a more rigid schedule. I find that flexibility much better. So it just allowed it. This is not something exclusive to the United States. It's something that's being experienced in the region as well. The cons, aside from obviously, everyone around the world becoming ill, is that the policy requirements to combat these are very ripe for weakness and for abuse, for police to be involved in contact tracing. There's a lot of possibility for abuse of the surveillance needs that are necessary to be able to track people with coronavirus, to be able to track how it spreads, and to quarantine people properly to prevent it from spreading any further. Qatar had developed a tool called Ihtiraz, which was used to manage contact tracing, so that way people who got tests would be able to show and say, I tested negative. If someone tested positive, it would flag people who are in contact with them to isolate and get tested themselves. But and rightfully, the government had required that anyone who was leaving the house would need to get this tool. But then that also requires that migrant workers who don't have a lot of disposable income now need to buy updated smartphones, which can cost a lot of money, require that they take out loans. Mm-hmm. And it turned out that the app actually had vulnerabilities, so they effectively required that all of their citizenry do this. Fortunately, they updated it rather quickly, but it sort of shows you how it's necessary to act very quickly, and it's very difficult to get everything right.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. Let me ask you this follow-up question, Mike, since we're talking about all of these measures. Which countries, in your opinion, had the fastest and best deployment of digital tools and technologies or technological means in responding to this pandemic or health crisis, and which ones had the worst record and why?
Mm-hmm. As far as digital tools, I have not been able to do a comprehensive study to see, what every single individual country is doing. But from what has come across my desk, I've seen that it has been pretty much what you would expect, that the countries who already have deeper technology sectors and investments in developing native technology sectors have been faster to develop this kind of technology. So we're talking about Israel, Bahrain, the Emirates, Qatar, Saudi Arabia. I have not been able to see whether these sorts of things have been developed in, Algeria, Tunisia, Jordan, Lebanon. I'm not aware of them there, but I don't want to, say anything definitive. I don't want to name call and say these countries are worse. But it's generally, I think, sort of followed the path of inequality that you already observe in terms of economic development in the region.
I see. Thank you so much. And Mohammed, if I was to ask you the same question about some of the pros and cons, in your opinion, some of the positives and negatives maybe that came out of this pandemic when it comes to the field or the area of cybersecurity in particular, what would be your take on that?
I think for the last 10 years, we have been building a lot of tools to be connected in the workplace, things that can facilitate being mobile and do work from anywhere. But they were never tested. We never tested hypothetically that we can work from anywhere in the world. And I think COVID-19 accelerated this trend, actually solidified the fact that we can be mobile and work from everywhere. And it's evident by the Silicon Valley executives and their statements about, for example, Twitter will give people luxury of working from wherever they want. Facebook is thinking about 50% of their work power can be mobile. So it's unleashing a new thing. It's unleashing a new phenomena in the workspace. So this is with the pros, that we are connected. The cons, I think it would be privacy. I think the only way to fight COVID-19 is collecting nice data, that you can trace the virus. You can basically make sure that people who are infected are following rules and health rules and are doing self-isolation. The problem with that is it gives governments more significant powers over their own citizens, even in democracies. Even in democracies, we are witnessing this trend of government having mass data on their citizens. And there's some sort of pushback even coming from big tech, like when we see big tech having their own initiatives that far away from the government, very reluctant to give government access to names, but just give them just data. So this is the main downside that I see from COVID-19, in addition to the health and the other economic crisis coming from the pandemic.
Absolutely. These are all very important points, and we'll come back to this very interesting and important discussion right after this commercial break. Stay tuned, please.
Kashat's Mediterranean Market and Shish Kebab offers a great array of your favorite Mediterranean meals. Meals range from lamb specialties, shawarma sandwiches, seafood dinners, and they offer special big trays of your favorite food, plus much more. Kashat's Mediterranean Market and Shish Kebab address is 32839 Northwestern Highway in Farmington Hills. Their phone number is 248-538-9552. That number again is 248-538-9552, and the supermarket is open from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. Kashat's Mediterranean Market and Shish Kebab will definitely leave you satisfied.
Are you going to start a restaurant or grocery store soon? Do you need floor plans and designs? Call Naji Abood at 734-744-9796. Do you want to buy kitchen and restaurant equipment at discount prices? Call Naji Abood now, 734-744-9796. New Concept Products and Design, the trademark of kitchen equipment. 5% discount on all purchases of $75,000 or more. New Concept Products and Design, new location, 31185 Schoolcraft in Livonia. Learn more at www.newconceptproducts.com. Call Naji Abood, 734-744-9796.
مرحبا سعيد.
اهلا علا.
ليش هالمقابله الفاتره هي؟ بيقول المثل لاقيني ولا تغديني.
يمه زعلتي، شنو رايك اذا لقيتك وايضا غديتك باحسن مطاعم ميشيغان، مطعم عشتار؟
والله فكره، افضل الاطباق والمقبلات العربيه والعراقيه واحلى ملقا.
ولا تنسين اللحوم الطازجه مباشره من ملحمه عشتار لزباين عشتار، وملحمه عشتار توفر اختيارات متنوعه من كافه انواع اللحوم وباسعار متميزه وجوده ايضا مميزه. ملحمة عشتار تقع على 36865 راين رود في مدينة ستيرلينغ هايت.
وأكيد أحلى لمة وأطيب لقمة في مطعم عشتار اللي عنوانه 3625 15 مايل رود في مدينة ستيرلينغ هايت. هاتف 586-698-2585 586-698-2585.
يلا علا،
يلا عشتار، للجودة وكرم الضيافة عنوان
مطعم عشتار.
When you're looking for the best in optical care, Dr. Imad Nakash is your doctor to see. With years of experience and thousands of successful procedures performed, you can trust your eyes to Dr. Imad Nakash. See Dr. Imad Nakash and his professional staff for your eye care needs. There's 2 locations to serve you. In Hazel Park, call 248-336-3937. 248-336-3937. In Rochester Hills, call 248-299-3937. That's 248-299-3937.
This is Dr. Sahar Khamis. Join me on the third Friday of each month at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll be discussing some of the most important current political, economic, and social issues in my program, The Bridge. On Radio Baladi, on America's Voice of the Arabs, WNZK 690 AM and WTMV 700 AM. Welcome back to the show, everyone. This is your host, Dr. Sahar Khamis. We're talking today about a very important and timely topic, cybersecurity in the Middle East and the coronavirus era, threats, challenges, and potentials. And with me this morning discussing this important topic are 2 experts in this field, Mike Sexton and Mohammed Soliman from... Let's go back again to the comparison in different countries. Like Mike gave us an idea about some of the countries he thinks did well or did not do as well within the MENA region. What about the global picture? Just to give some picture to our, to our listeners here, Mike, from the global perspective, which countries, in your opinion, had the best responses or the fastest responses, and why, digitally speaking, from the perspective of cybersecurity, and which ones were lagging behind, in your opinion?
Mm-hmm. Just from what I've seen, it's generally tracked with the economic disparities that are already existent in the region, that you have countries that have deep sources of wealth, like Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, basically the petrochemical countries, as well as Israel, that have already deep investments in the technology sector, that have been able to quickly respond and develop these apps and deploy them very quickly. Whereas with countries that don't necessarily have that technological breadth, they are slower to develop these technologies, and in the same way may be slower to be able to get on top of the pandemic spread.
Excellent. And Mohammed, you want to add something about the comparison between different maybe countries, different regions, whether it's within the Middle East in particular or globally, the ones that you believe also had good responses, and maybe why you think they had these good responses, and the ones that were lagging behind, and maybe in your opinion why they were lagging behind?
This is an excellent question, Sahar. I will echo Mike here. I think economic disparity and conflict are the main drivers for any kind of disparity or technological divide. So the Middle East and North Africa is not really one region, as we all know. Experts sometimes think that it's just one single basket. I think you clearly have the Gulf using its own finances, oil accumulated wealth, to invest extensively in their own digital infrastructure, and that paid off. It paid off through swift transformation to remote working, tracing apps. We have UAE, Bahrain, and Saudi Arabia, Kuwait. They did a great job. They even deployed drones to help with their own responses. So definitely like a world-class response. And then you have Egypt following the Gulf a little bit, a big country, big economy. But North Africa in general did not really have that much capabilities like the Gulf. Whether we speak about Morocco, Algeria, the responses were lagging. Part of it that there is no much investment. In addition, that Libya is witnessing a civil war. And then the third region is Levant. I think Levant, because of a lot of financial problems, a lot of economic downturns, Lebanon has a big economic problem right now. The civil war in Syria, I think, and also in addition to the West Bank and Gaza, I think that specific set of countries have lagged even behind North Africa. So this is how I rank the region in terms of response: the Gulf, Egypt, North Africa, and then Levant. Again, economic disparities, conflict have been the main driver that made their technology response differentiates between these group of countries.
Very good. Thank you so much for this clarification. And Mike, some of the concepts that scientists have been talking about in the context of the pandemic has been testing and contact tracing. So can you please explain to our listeners who maybe are not familiar with the role of digital technologies in these particular complex processes? How can we understand these two concepts of testing and tracing, and how can they possibly be applied using what kind of techniques and what kind of measures when you talk about cybersecurity?
So there are a few different digital technologies that are being utilized a lot in terms of tracking and managing the pandemic spread. The first of them is QR codes, which some of our audience, I'm sure have seen before, even if they're not familiar with the term. It's similar to a barcode, but instead it's a square. Payment processors like Venmo use it. You can use it to check in for your flight or for concert tickets. And a lot of different ministries of health have been essentially developing these QR codes so that way when someone walks into a building, a government employee with the Ministry of Health can check and scan and see, okay, this is this person's ID. I know that this is the right person. I can see they took a test at this date. I can see they tested negative. So these are being used to, track that people are healthy, that people are not breaking quarantine and things like that. Another is Bluetooth, which listeners may also be familiar with, which is used for headphones, speakers, other different sorts of technologies, usually with a laptop or a cell phone. So Bluetooth can be used to track when one phone is a certain distance from another. So that could be used as a kind of tripwire if somebody tests positive for coronavirus, that there could be an app tracking their Bluetooth that would then go back and say, okay, you were within 6 feet of these 15 people in the past week. So now we notify those people that they are at risk. They should isolate. They should get tested to see if they test positive. And the last and most obvious is GPS, which has been around for decades now, global positioning systems, which is, in my opinion, really the most dangerous technology there is here, because if, the requirement for the GPS to be valuable, it's not just enough to say, that I entered this grocery store. You can't just shut down the entire grocery store. You need to know when I was there, who was there at the same time, which effectively means tracking where everyone is at all times, for this to be an effective technology to use, which can be extremely dangerous if it's, if this data is to be accessed by the police, by counterterrorism services. It's very ripe for abuse if it's not being strictly held by public health professionals and kept extremely private and being the data being destroyed as it's no longer useful.
Absolutely, it does have its downsides. I even heard about bracelets now, that thinking about putting bracelets on people and tracing or linking this, to their phone and tracing them everywhere. Obviously, that has its downsides as well. We'll come back to this very important.
This is what we do to prisoners. The neck, the ankle bracelet. It's a little scary that it's necessary, but we're effectively needing to be all tracked like we're out of prison.
Absolutely. We'll come back to this very important point in this important discussion right after this commercial break. Stay tuned, please.
If halal is important to your family, you can trust that Miramar will offer not only the highest quality halal products, but the best tasting and healthiest foods that can be placed on your family table with confidence. Miramar is the first and oldest halal certified food brand in America, serving the Arab and Muslim community, and offers a wide range of halal food products. Check out Miramar's halal food selection today by visiting Miramar's exclusive distributor, Ziad Brothers Importing, at www.ziad.com.
When it comes to reproductive medicine, IVF Michigan Fertility Centers are the recognized leaders. With locations in Bloomfield Hills and 5 other cities in Michigan and Ohio, IVF has experts in all aspects of the field. As a founding member of IVF Michigan Fertility Centers, Dr. Nicholas Shama is one of the leading reproductive endocrinologists in Michigan and Ohio. Dr. Shama has performed over 10,000 IVF cases and has helped thousands of couples fulfill their dreams of parenthood. American board certified in both obstetrics obstetrics and gynecology and reproductive endocrinology and infertility. Dr. Nicholas Shama is a very caring, compassionate, expert physician that understands not only the medical but also the emotional toil of infertility on his patients. When it's time, get personalized care from Dr. Nicholas Shama at IVF Michigan Fertility Centers in Michigan and Ohio. Call toll-free 855-952-9600, 855-952-9600.
كل ساعة عم بستناك مشان نروح نتغدى بالشام.
الشام؟
ايه بالشام ومو بالشام.
شلون صارت هي؟
بدل ما نروح نتغدى بالشام
ايه
جابوا لنا الأكلات الشامية الطيبة لعنا لهم.
وشلون بقى؟
هذا مطعم دماس عم يعمل كل الأكلات الشامية الطيبة هو.
طيبة؟
طيبة كتير.
شرفوا نتغدى سوا بمطعم دماس.
الأكل الشامي الأصيل فقط بدمس كوزين. زوروهم على 28841 أورشاد ليك بفارمينغتون هيلز، ولطلباتكم اتصلوا على 248-987-4609. That's 248-987-4609. دمس كوزين and catering، جبنا لكم الشام لعندكم.
Are you going to start a restaurant or grocery store soon? Do you need floor plans and designs? Call Naji Abood at 734-744-9796. Do you want to buy kitchen and restaurant equipment at discount prices? Call Naji Abood now, 734-744-9796. New Concept Products and Design, the trademark of kitchen equipment. 5% discount on all purchases of $75,000 or more. New Concept Products and Design, new location, 31185 Schoolcraft in Livonia. Learn more at www.newconceptproducts.com. Call Naji Abood, 734-744-9796.
This is Dr. Sahar Khamis. Join me on the third Friday of each month at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll be discussing some of the most important current political, economic, and social issues in my program, The Bridge. On Radio Baladi, on America's Voice of the Arabs, WNZK 690 AM and WDMV 700 AM. Welcome back to the show, everyone. This is your host, Dr. Sahar Khamis. We're talking today about a very timely and important topic, cybersecurity in the Middle East in the coronavirus era, threats, challenges, and potentials. And with me this morning discussing this topic are Mike Sexton and Mohammed Soliman, both from the Middle East Institute. Mohammed, on this note that we were talking about before the break concerning tracing, and Mike talked about, what it means. We gave some examples. Obviously, that also has a lot of consequences in terms of things like, surveillance, invasion of privacy, certain difficulties or challenges or consequences when it comes to using these new tools and techniques. How real are these threats, and is there any way to balance tracing with protection of privacy?
Well, that's a question of the hour, Dr. Sahar. I think it's very feasible. We have a lot of countries have deployed their own program. The UAE has a Unistalker, the EYES program. Bahrain has the Be Aware. Saudi Arabia at least has 2 apps through their government portal and their Ministry of Health. So it's there. And of course, in addition to Israel, has been deploying 2 different tracing apps. So it's there in the region, being used, being deployed. The problem with the surveillance that it gives you more than you should know about private lives. Social patterns. You can basically easily use the big data that you have about your population to do social engineering. You can affect your population, understand how they think. It's basically controlling. Think about the Chinese model. Think about how we are witnessing a system that was just built like this 10 years ago, and then it evolved to right now have social credit system that gives numbers and scores to citizens that would allow them to move between different cities or even travel overseas. I think in the region, because we have lack of clear democratic structure, it's a bad problem. In addition to the rest of the freedom of speech argument that we have, how much people can actually say what they want to say about the government, and criticizing certain policies. It's a new thing for the region. COVID-19 represented an opportunity because a lot of the regional governments were reluctant to use tracing apps, and COVID-19 legitimized using them because that as I mentioned before, was one of the most effective ways to limit the pandemic outbreak.
Very important points. And, Mike, I'm really tempted to talk a little bit more about this topic in particular because of its importance. And I'm sure the listeners share the interest and the curiosity to understand really the real threats here. Like, when you talk about things like invasion of privacy, you gave us some examples. Is there any way for us as just, ordinary average citizens who are not, so tech savvy or we're not really experts in cybersecurity per se, to really protect our own personal data, information, privacy, private lives in the midst of all of this great, development of new digital tools to trace everyone and track everyone?
I mean, I think it's a really hard question. Under normal circumstances, there are plenty of easy things you can do on your phone to just make sure that you're limiting how much your apps can trace your location. I'll only let one app trace my location when I'm not actually using it. That's if I'm going for a walk and I want to track the map of where I walk. But in these sorts of circumstances, that GPS tracking is not going to be handled necessarily by an app on your phone. It can be through the telecommunications provider. This is true both in the United States and in the region. So, I mean, unless you're just leaving your phone at home or turning it off, it's really practically impossible to protect your privacy. And even if you were to, you're subverting the ability of the government to track all of that information for public health. So I think this is really kind of a scary time. The best thing that I would say is to, if you've got conversations you're keeping private, whether it's with activists, journalists, that sort of thing, to make sure to use secure platforms that are encrypted, whether it's, Facebook Messenger's encrypted self-deleting messages or Signal or something along those lines, rather than relying necessarily upon just text messages.
Absolutely. And that really leads me into the next question. As a communication professor, I cannot help but think about the harsh crackdown on journalists and media professionals and, regime opponents and activists, which has been really escalating in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic. We have seen a lot of that happening globally, but especially in the MENA region, the Middle East and North Africa. So, Mike, would it be fair to say that technology played a double-edged sword in this process? Did it really enable some of this opposition to regimes, but at the same time enabled the regimes to crack down even strongly and in a more harsh way on these opponents and journalists and professionals? What do you think?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it's just like you've always said before, that there's possibilities for these countries to become more democratic. It's much easier for people to speak out. All you need to do is get a Twitter account. But at the same time, all it takes for you to get in trouble is to have a Twitter account. You don't just need to be a journalist publishing in a newspaper. Everyone has the platform, so everyone can speak their mind, but now everyone is at much greater risk to be punished. There was a very excellent article put out recently by the Moshe Dayan Center at Tel Aviv University about what this looks like specifically in Turkey, where there have been very harsh crackdowns on journalists for a long time. And this article is specifically focused on what the crackdowns looked like under coronavirus, where the government and pro-regime news outlets essentially control the entire narrative and keep the public from realizing just how bad the pandemic is getting. And if any news outlets or individuals on social media try to speak up about it, they end up in trouble with the police.
Absolutely. And that really leads us to the discussion about this concept of digital authoritarianism, right? Like at the beginning of the Arab Spring movements in 2011, there was this moment of techno euphoria, and everybody was very, euphoric, like including myself. I wrote a lot about cyber activism and cyber feminism, and this is awesome. The media is going to play such an important role. Social media in particular is going to be liberating. Fast forward to 2020, and we're seeing these harsh crackdowns on regime opponents and on cyber activists. And like you said, even a tweet can get you in trouble. And we have seen activists who are being arrested just because of a tweet. How serious can we think about this notion, Mike, of digital authoritarianism as becoming a reality within the region, and especially in the midst of this health crisis? Can we think of it between different countries as well as in the same country between regimes and opponents, for example?
Sorry, was that for me?
Yes.
Yeah. So, I absolutely think it's a possibility. Public health professionals were saying public health and privacy professionals were saying at the start of this, when we realized we were going to need a lot of surveillance technology to be able to control the spread of this virus, that it's very important how this data is held because it is so sensitive. An example that I'm pretty familiar with is in Israel, the Shin Bet, or Internal Security Service, similar to the FBI, was put in charge of contact tracing, which is just absolutely the wrong idea, because the Shin Bet's purpose is to stop serious crime, it's to stop terrorism. They are not a public health agency. And the Supreme Court of Israel actually needed to step in and say this is not their job. They should not have access to this data. So you really do see this possibility for countries, even ones that are partially democratic like Israel, to become even more authoritarian, to become even more like police states, to create even more possibility for tracking citizens, not necessarily even just for their health, but for any reason whatsoever.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting and very scary at the same time. I'll ask the same question to Mohammed, the digital authoritarianism part, and I'm sure as someone who's also writing on the region, the Middle East region in particular, how do you really see this whole process of digital authoritarianism, its impact growing and really becoming more and more threatening in the midst or in the context of this health crisis? And if you can just comment about that, whether between different countries or also within the same country between regimes and opponents, for example.
So the best part about globalization is the worst part about globalization. Mm-hmm. Meaning, if democracy is in retreat globally, that will empower undemocratic notion around the region. So today we have huge retreat. Think about all the images coming here from Washington, D.C. In the White House. Think about China. Think about Hong Kong. Think about what's happening in Italy or Hungary. So what's happening globally, that their democracy is in retreat. So in the Middle East, also democracy is in retreat, and digital authoritarianism is much more empowered right now. It's much more legitimized. There is already a case that's being made that the more authoritarian the more you can control COVID-19. And that has been the message. That has been all the statements coming from different governments. We need to be much more authoritarian, much more powerful, much more assertive like China. The Chinese model became the standard. Only because China was authoritarian, we controlled the COVID-19. So that's a narrative. So it's empowering all these trends that you have been seeing, whether crackdown on journalism, making sure that no clear numbers about COVID-19 infections are being circulated, or restricting access, making sure your population is not really aware of the realities on the ground. So that will increase, that will be the new norm in the region, unfortunately. And I don't really see a situation or a scenario where we can get back to pre-COVID-19 Middle East.
Mm-hmm. And obviously it is really showing both, not just democratizing potential, but the repressive potential of social media and new media. And I totally agree with both of you that we're seeing more of the repressive authoritarian side being legitimized under the claim of protecting public health. We'll come back to this very important discussion right after this commercial break. Stay tuned, please.
Life is a nonprofit charity that's provided humanitarian aid and development to people and communities for over 25 years, regardless of race, color, religion, or cultural background. When disaster occurs here or around the world, Life for Relief and Development rushes in to provide food, medical aid, and shelter to those in need. Please help improve these efforts. Make your tax-deductible donation to Life now at lifeusa.org or call 248-424-7493.
مركز طب رهاب للعلاج الطبيعي بإدارة الدكتور محمد فرح حسين، أخصائي العلاج الطبيعي بخبرة أكثر من 13 عاما. طب رهاب يقدم خدمات العلاج الطبيعي وإعادة التأهيل، ويضم مجموعة من أفضل أخصائي التشخيص الدقيق للحالات المرضية، مع خبرة عالية في التعامل مع الحالات التي تحتاج إلى إعادة تأهيل وعناية خاصة بعد العمليات والكسور. طب رهاب يستقبل كل الحالات المتعلقة بألم الرقبة، الظهر، المفاصل، شلل الوجه، الانزلاق الغضروفي، عرق النساء، الحوادث وإصابات العمل. خبيرات في المعالجة النسائية لخصوصيات تامة للسيدات. عندما تبحثون عن رعاية متميزة اقصدوا طب رهاب للعلاج الطبيعي، الواقع على 15001 ميشيغان افنيو، وللمواعيد اتصلوا على 313-846-0555. That's 846-0555. مرحبا سعيد.
اهلا علا.
ليش هالمقابلة الفاترة هاي؟ بيقول المثل لاقيني ولا تغديني.
يمه زعلتي، شنو رأيك إذا لقيتك وأيضا غديتك بأحسن مطاعم ميشيغان، مطعم أشتار؟
والله فكرة، أفضل الأطباق والمقبلات العربية والعراقية وأحلى ملقا.
ولا تنسين اللحوم الطازجة مباشرة من ملحمة أشتار لزباين أشتار. وملحمة أشتار توفر اختيارات متنوعة من كافة أنواع اللحوم وبأسعار متميزة وجودة أيضا مميزة. ملحمة أشتار تقع على 36865 راين رود في مدينة ستيرلينغ هايت.
وأكيد أحلى لمة وأطيب لقمة في مطعم عشتار اللي عنوانه 3625 15 مايل رود في مدينة ستيرلينغ هايت. هاتف 586-698-2585 586-698-2585.
يلا علا،
يلا عشتار، للجودة وكرم الضيافة عنوان
مطعم أشتار.
If halal is important to your family, you can trust that Miramar will offer not only the highest quality halal products, but the best tasting and healthiest foods that can be placed on your family table with confidence. Miramar is the first and oldest halal certified food brand in America, serving the Arab and Muslim community, and offers a wide range of halal food products. Check out Miramar's halal food selection today by visiting Miramar's exclusive distributor, Ziad Brothers Importing at www.ziad.com.
When it comes to reproductive medicine, IVF Michigan fertility centers are the recognized leaders. With locations in Bloomfield Hills and 5 other cities in Michigan and Ohio, IVF has experts in all aspects of the field. As a founding member of IVF Michigan Fertility Centers, Dr. Nicholas Shama is one of the leading reproductive endocrinologists in Michigan and Ohio. Dr. Shama has performed over 10,000 IVF cases and has helped thousands of couples fulfill their dreams of parenthood. American board certified in both obstetrics and gynecology and reproductive endocrinology and infertility, Dr. Nicholas Shama is a very caring, compassionate, expert physician that understands not only the medical but also the emotional toil of infertility on his patients. When it's time, get personalized care from Dr. Nicholas Shama at IVF Michigan Fertility Centers in Michigan and Ohio. Call toll-free 855-952-9600, 855-952-9600.
Kashat's Mediterranean Market and Shish Kebab offers a great array of your favorite Mediterranean meals. Meals range from lamb specialties, shawarma sandwiches, seafood dinners, and they offer special big trays of your favorite food, plus much more. Kashat's Mediterranean Market and Shish Kebab address is 32839 Northwestern Highway in Farmington Hills. Their phone number is 248-538-9552. That number again is 248-538-9552. And the supermarket is open from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. Kashat's Mediterranean Market and Shish Kebab will definitely leave you satisfied.
This is Dr. Sahar Khamis. Join me on the third Friday of each month at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll be discussing some of the most important current political, economic, and social issues in my program, The Bridge. On Radio Baladi, on America's Voice of the Arabs, WNZK 690 AM and WDMV 700 AM. Welcome back to the show, everyone. This is your host, Dr. Sahar Khamis. We're talking today about a very important and timely topic, cybersecurity in the Middle East in the coronavirus era, threats, challenges, and potentials. Mohammed, since we're talking about this important point, I also want to touch upon something which is very important, which is the digital divide. There has been an assumption, obviously, at the beginning of the Arab Spring and, with all the techno euphoria I mentioned before, that, the internet is going to be a very much egalitarian space. Everybody is going to have a voice on the internet, and it's going to give everyone the same degree of freedom, the same degree of authority and voice. Obviously, that has not been the case, and one of the problems has been digital divide. If you can talk to our listeners a little bit about this phenomena, what it really means, how it's manifesting itself, especially in the midst of this crisis in the MENA region, whether between different countries or even within the same country.
That's a very excellent question. I think for the last 10 years specifically, we have been witnessing a phenomena that experts call the balkanization of cyberspace, meaning we are not really in 1990s, early 2000s internet, where someone in Beijing can access the same website in Berlin. That's not the case anymore. We have not even a Chinese internet and a US internet. Actually, we have almost three internets, with the European GDPR and the European emphasis on data privacy. So that encouraged a lot of countries to work on their own cyberspace, to own their cyberspace, to have some sort of Chinese model internet. So, for example, in Iran, after the Green Movement in the 2009-2010, they actually worked on something called Halal Internet, an internet that has an Iranian version of whatever exists on the original network. Mm-hmm. Today, after COVID, I think this trend would be accelerated in less developed and less tech-savvy countries. So you don't have to be China to have your own internet. China had it, Russia had it. Right now we see a lot of African and even Middle Eastern countries who are having similar kind of tendency and have been trying to limit and own their internet. So they are looking into something called the sovereign internet. So in Egypt, there is more than 500 websites blocked. More than there is media law that put anyone under can be punished for circulating certain news that do not really align with the government. It's not only in Egypt. We see this even in the new cyber law in Qatar. We see the same law used in Saudi Arabia. It's everywhere. And by using these legal tools and legal justifications, you can actually create your own cyber norms, your own cyber space, and own it. No one in the region, no one from government perspective, want to repeat the Arab Spring again. What led to the Arab Spring? That the governments were new to the internet. They couldn't really understand the internet. Right now, governments are different. These governments are much more dynamic, understand the internet, understand how to control the internet, because other countries showed them the way.
Absolutely. They built their own learning curve, right? They now have their own learning curve. They learn the lessons from the past. Mike, if you were just to add a little bit about this whole point, which is very important, about the digital divide between, the technological haves and have-nots, not just between different countries, but even within the same country, just to give our listeners a little bit of an idea of some of the real limitations. And if you want to add any other limitations that you believe are also pertinent and related to this whole point and discussion here, please.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think it's within countries. It's a problem within countries when it comes to the need of contact tracing apps. It assumes that people have smartphones that have GPS, that can install apps that are reliable. That's not necessarily something that everyone has. It's something we take as a given a lot in the United States, and maybe Qatari and Bahraini nationals take as a given for themselves, but migrant workers don't have it. This can impose new costs on them, and it's really harmful when you actually essentially punish poor people for being poor by making them have to pay more and dig themselves further into debt. So it's we're seeing this pandemic is essentially shining a bright light on the economic disparities that already exist in these countries. In the region, the United States, as well as just between different countries that have the technological capacity to develop these apps quickly and the ones that don't.
Absolutely. And of course, they're all interrelated. Like you have the digital aspect, you have the technological aspect, you have the economic aspect. All of these are closely intertwined and interrelated to each other, which explains why you have these kinds of disparities and these types of gaps between not just one country and another, but even within the same country. For example, between the urban and rural areas, the technological haves and have-nots, based on economy, based on income, but also based on other factors like digital literacy and other stuff as well. So as we move towards the last part of our discussion, there is a very big question I would like to ask both of you. Let's start with you, Mike. How do you expect the new developments in the field of cybersecurity, which have been manifesting themselves lately in the realms of surveillance, censorship, privacy, to shape the agenda of cyber professionals and practitioners on one hand, as well as the research agenda of academics moving forward?
So I think that what the coronavirus pandemic is doing is privacy is a matter of both technology and of policy. There's a lot that individuals can and should do to protect their own privacy, but it is also a government issue that governments, whether it's the U.S. or any in the region, need to respect individuals' privacy. There's a role for both. And when it comes to a crisis like this, where people just need to forfeit some of their privacy in the interest of public health, what then becomes important is making sure that the policies around it are responsible. And too often, I think people treat privacy more as a technology issue, as an issue of what are the apps I should be using? How do I keep track of all of these passwords? But people should also educate themselves about the different government policies that affect their privacy, whether it's around how much companies are able to store their data or what sorts of speech are allowed online, because these are becoming much more important now when the technology issue is not so pronounced.
Absolutely. These are great thoughts. And Mohammed, I'll ask you the same question. How do you expect all of that to affect the way professionals and practitioners are really shaping their future agendas, topics and subjects you want to talk about or discuss? And most importantly, of course, for our purposes here, academics and the research agenda, the kinds of topics and subjects you expect are going to dominate both the field of practitioners and professionals in cybersecurity, as well as the research agenda of those who are writing about these issues.
I echo what Mike mentioned. I think we will witness much more active citizen activism that's centered around digital rights. That the fact that the internet is right now, think about the internet as a utility, not really as a luxury. It's very integrated, and COVID-19 accelerated that integration and the fundamental need for internet in every aspect. That will make people look into the internet as a right, a digital right, and they will fight for their rights. Whether this is like the right to make sure that they are not being traced, with their data storage, where this data is being stored, looking into apps, paying much more attention even to the contract page and any app that you install in your own phone. There were organized campaigns trying to push back against government's regulations that would take these digital rights away. Academically, digital privacy will play a bigger role in academia, in the academia that's focused around digitalization in general. Part of that privacy is very central to democracy, to human rights, to authoritarianism, to democratization. Privacy right now is in every single part of the political science within the Middle East as a region.
Very important. I think it gives us a lot of food for thought moving forward, whether as professionals or whether as academics in this field. And Mike, I want you to finally, as we end or we come closer to the end of the program, to give our listeners an idea about the programs and the specific projects maybe that Middle East Institute is working on right now that are related to this whole process of cybersecurity in the midst of the COVID-19 era. And if you in particular are working on any particular projects that you want to share with our listeners as well.
Yeah, so we are keeping a very close eye on privacy issues, privacy and censorship issues, now as they become even more pronounced in the coronavirus era. We held a panel specifically discussing it in March, around the time when DC first went into lockdown. We had a privacy and surveillance panel in our conference just last week. And you will actually be contributing a chapter on digital authoritarianism in the coronavirus era and the control of information and the risk of surveillance for our upcoming book that Mohammed mentioned at the opening called Cyber War and Cyber Peace in the Middle East. So we're keeping a very close eye on this issue, and I think it's only going to become more important, as this era, continues and eventually, inshallah, fades away.
Absolutely. It seems you're keeping a very busy schedule, keeping everybody very busy, but I'm also very pleased to be part of this excellent team at the Middle East Institute for sure. And Mohammed, if I was to ask you the same question about projects, like things that you're working on right now in the realm of, cybersecurity, what are your upcoming maybe projects? Quickly give our listeners an idea in the remaining couple of minutes, what are you working on and plan to work on related to this particular topic or this area?
So first of all, thank you for having us. I think I'm working on a series of articles that should discuss the digital divide between the Gulf and North Africa and Levant. I want to have dedicated series of analysis pieces that focus on each region and how they're all give you a bigger picture of the region and digital landscape. I started with a piece already about the Gulf. Hopefully I will do another one on North Africa. And hopefully the third one will be about Levant.
Excellent. So again, very busy schedule. And you said at the very beginning also, Mike, that the Middle East Institute has more than one track. So there's definitely the cybersecurity program. And you mentioned other cultural and other initiatives that are also taking place within the institute right now. Maybe some of them you want to just quickly give our listeners an idea. What are they maybe working on that might intersect with this area, if any?
Yeah, so our cultural team currently has put out an opening for submissions on for artwork made during the pandemic under quarantine to see how this is affecting artists, thinking and their creativity. Our education team has moved all of their classes entirely online. So if anyone who's not located in Washington, D.C. is interested in learning Farsi, Arabic, Hebrew, Turkish, they should check that out to see if they can join the classes online because they're well respected, they're accredited. That's why we have mei.edu as an educational institute rather than just mei.org like most think tanks have.
Excellent. And I think it's really one of the most vibrant, most active think tanks in Washington, D.C. And it does this amazing job of trying to balance all of these different tracks, all of these different areas of interest, and to appeal to a very wide array of audiences and publics within the region and outside of the region. So again, I want to reiterate the fact that I'm very proud and pleased to be part of the team at Middle East Institute and to also join the cyber program in particular. Thank you so much for that, Mike, for the invitation. And thank you for being my guest also this morning, Mike Sexton and Mohammed Soliman from the Middle East Institute. We really appreciate your perspectives and insights so much. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much. And hopefully we're going to have you back again on the program in the near future.
Inshallah. Shukran.
Inshallah. Thank you. Thank you. Shukran. And thank you so much to all our listeners everywhere. We thank you all for tuning in today and being part of this program and listening to our conversation. Have a great day, great week, great month, and great year ahead of you. And hopefully we're going to see you again and hear you again very soon on this program on US Arab Radio. Thank you and goodbye.